The best way I can describe today's video is by quoting the great Adele, "We are turning tables." And what I mean by that is this. Usually, as you guys know, I react to your football hot takes, but today we're flipping the script, we're turning tables, we're pulling a switcheroo, we're doing a Freaky Friday. Whatever you want to call it, just know you guys get to react to my football hot takes now. What a beautiful full circle moment on this channel. The teacher becomes a student, and the student becomes the teacher. It's like if all of a sudden Jackie Chan had to learn how to fight, like he had a huge karate fight coming up, and he asked Jaden Smith to teach him how to fight. Wouldn't that be a great sequel to The Karate Kid? Somebody please make that movie and give me credit for it. Please somebody make that movie. Or actually, better yet, somebody make a movie about this series that I'm doing right now. YouTuber goes from reacting to his viewers' hot takes to now his viewers react to his hot takes. Oh my god, so much suspense and the plot would be just amazing. Somebody, if anybody knows Tarantino or Spielberg, please get me in contact with them so I can pitch them this blockbuster idea. Because I promise you, once I pitch them this idea, they'll never need Viagra again. I'm not 100% sure both of those guys use Viagra, but I'm like 90% sure. But once I pitch them this idea, they're going to throw that shit away. I promise you they will. But anyway, enough about Spielberg and Viagra. Like I said, today, you guys get to react to my football hot takes. And we have a PowerPoint. And if you're an OG Meet Snowball viewer, you know how much I love a good PowerPoint. This PowerPoint makes this video so much more special to me. But every time I make a PowerPoint, everybody says I plagiarized it and I stole it because they're so fucking good. Everybody says, bro, this PowerPoint is the best I've ever seen. There's no way you made this from scratch. And I take offense to that, man, because I put my blood, sweat, and tears into this fucking PowerPoint. You can see at the bottom, it was made by a guy trying to beat the Gerard Martin doppelganger allegations. That's me. I'm that guy. I'm trying to beat those allegations currently. And rest assured, I will stop at nothing, and I mean nothing, to beat those allegations, okay? You're listening to me? Toxic Russo? I will stop at nothing. I will shave my head. I'll shave my eyebrows. I'll get lip filler. I'll get a BBL. I'll become unrecognizable before I get compared to Gerard Martin once again. I promise you I will. But anyway, enough about Gerard Martin, Viagra, Tarantino. Let's actually get into the video now because sometimes I talk way too much in these intros and people probably just clicked off already. But anyway, if you stayed for that part, this video is about to be good, I promise you. First take we have, Arsenal should sack Arteta if he goes trophyless this season. I said if, I should change that to when. There's no way in hell Arsenal are winning a trophy this year. I'm sorry. There's just no way. And people think I pick on Arsenal or Arteta. I don't hate Arsenal at all. I don't have any vendetta against Arsenal. But with Mikel Arteta, what baffles me is that everybody gives this guy so much runway for what? For what? He won an FA Cup 6 years ago. He's been in the job for 6 years and he's only won an FA Cup. You know who else won an FA Cup? Roberto Martinez with Wigan. Not even with Arsenal, with Wigan. Okay? So this guy, what he did isn't really that special. And like, I get it, the 2 years before, you're competing against City, the best team in England over the past 10 years. And you push them all the way. But if you go back and look at those seasons, there was times with when Arsenal could have closed the gap on City, or they could have actually surpassed them down the stretch, and they failed at every step. They just collapsed, man. And this season, City have fallen off. City actually fell off. Your arch nemesis, your rival, the team that you were competing against for the past 2 years, they fell off. And now you can't even beat Liverpool. And granted, this Liverpool team, they're not some bums, okay? They're on pace to be one of the best Premier League teams ever. I think Liverpool are on pace for like 95 points. They've only lost one game, okay? So this Liverpool team under Arne Slot is amazing. But still, bro, what have you done? What have you done? You're knocked out of the FA Cup. You're knocked out of the EFL Cup. You're not going to win the UCL. You're not going to win the Prem. As a matter of fact, here's a good stat for you guys. I saw this stat the other day, and I want to tell you guys. With that 0-0 draw yesterday to Nottingham Forest, that's the 9th time this season. It's only February, by the way. Keep that in mind. It's only February. But it's the 9th time this season that Arsenal failed to score a goal. In modern football, that's unacceptable. And I understand they have injuries. Saka, to me, one of the best players in the Prem, has been hurt for a long time. Martinelli is out, but Martinelli sucks anyway, so I don't really care about that. Havertz has been out. Odegaard missed some time. A lot of the key players have missed time. I get that. But every squad has injuries. That's not an excuse, bro. It's not an excuse to be this poor at times. Arsenal have not been good to me this year. Defensively, they're very sound. Don't get me wrong. They're very, very sound. And I believe they'll get through to the quarterfinals of the UCL because they got PSV. But still, they're not going to win the whole thing. Even the biggest Arsenal fan will tell you they don't see this team winning the UCL. So my question to you is, why is Arteta still in the job? What is this guy showing you that you actually believe in him? He's come in second a couple times. He's going to come in second this year. Is that really your standard, bro? Arsenal once won Invincible. This is a team that never won a European Cup, but they got close. And now you have this guy who last year against Bayern Munich got out-coached through 2 legs, and it was honestly not even close. You know, he comes up against the big boys, and he always seems to be lacking something. To me, at least. So I think Arsenal should sack Arteta when he goes trophyless this season, because he's proven that he's a guy who can obviously raise your floor, but he can't raise your ceiling, in my opinion at least. Again, Arsenal fans, if you disagree, let me know in the comment section. But I don't see how this guy continues to get all this like a pass every time he comes up short. Anyway, our next take. Xavi was better than Iniesta. And people might think this isn't a hot take. It is. The consensus amongst football fans is that Iniesta was the better player in this duel. And I want to preface my comments by saying this. Obviously, as you guys know, being a Barca fan, I fucking love both of these guys. I'm not trying to start a battle between Xavi and Iniesta because I think they're the two best midfielders of all time. But I do think that Xavi needs more respect. I believe he was the better player. And Iniesta, the reason why he gets more love is because Iniesta was a human highlight reel. And I mean that, literally. If you go look at Iniesta's YouTube clips or like his highlights, the guy was a magician. I mean, it's honestly mesmerizing to watch this guy play. And Xavi, not so much. You know, Xavi, his YouTube like compilation is more like, you know, tiki-taka, circulating possession. You know, he finds that one pass into the final third. But Iniesta, it's like, oh, he's dribbling the whole pitch. He had that play against PSG, remember, where he took on the whole team basically and passed it to Neymar back in 2015 in the quarterfinals. He has those moments. And also Iniesta has the more iconic moments for like game winner moments. You know what I mean? He had the goal against the Netherlands in 2010 to win the World Cup. He had the goal against Chelsea in 2009 to send Barca to the UCL final, obviously in Rome, and propel them to win their first treble. Iniesta has that. Xavi doesn't have those moments, but Xavi, just if you look at those Spain and Barca teams, the most important midfielder on those teams and the best midfielder on those teams was always Xavi Hernandez. He controlled the tempo, he controlled the pace of the game, and he was a guy that anytime they needed something to happen, they would give the ball to this guy, whether it was number 8 or number 6. Well, obviously for Spain he wore 6. For Barca, he wore 6. For Spain he wore 8. But you know, you get what I'm saying. I always thought Xavi was the more complete and better midfielder, and that 08-09 season that Xavi had is arguably the best midfielder season ever. And to me, like I said, these two guys are the best midfielders of all time. I believe that. But if I had to pick one, and if I had to say who was better, I would say Xavi, but again, I love both of these guys. I just think Iniesta gets more praise and adulation because, again, like I said, he's more of like the guy that you can clip up and put on TikTok and people look at him and they're like, wow, Xavi doesn't really have that in his game. But if you watch full games and if you watch these guys in their prime, you know that it's not really ridiculous to say that Xavi was actually the better player. Next take. Karim Benzema had the greatest UCL campaign ever in 21-22. As you guys know, obviously I mentioned it in the last take, and I'm going to say it again, I'm a huge Barca fan, so obviously being a Barca fan, I'm a huge Messi fan. And I believe that Messi and 10-11 had one of the greatest UCL campaigns ever. You know, what he did against United in Wembley in that UCL final, probably the best final, the best performance in a UCL final history by Messi. What he did on that day was insane. The UCL semifinal against Madrid, especially in that first leg, the 2 goals that he scored were amazing. I mean, he was unplayable in that UCL run. Also 2014, 2015, we know how good Messi was. And of course, you can't talk about the UCL without talking about CR7, Mr. UCL himself. 13-14, broke the record for most goals in a UCL campaign. Then you had 16-17, 15-16. I mean, Ronaldo has so many great UCL runs. We know how good he was in the competition. That's why he's called Mr. Champions League. But to me, none of those seasons were as good as Karim Benzema in 21-22. And again, this is coming from a Barca fan. But I watched every game Madrid played in that UCL run. And what this man did, I'm not going to say it's a carry job because that's disrespectful to that Madrid team. That Madrid team had Vinicius Jr., who was amazing. Modric was fantastic that year. Thibaut Courtois, we know what he did in that final, obviously in Paris. Fede Valverde was fantastic. I mean, their back line was great too. But man, Karim Benzema, those knockout runs that he had against PSG, a hat-trick, against Chelsea, a hat-trick, against Man City, that goal that he scored. I always say, if you guys have watched my channel for a long time, you know, but that goal that he scored in the first leg is one of the greatest goals I've ever seen. Where he got that pass from Mendy and hit it on that volley. I don't know how he scored that goal. And I think this guy just had this inevitability about him. And to me, it's the best UCL campaign that I've seen because anytime his team needed him, he always showed up. And you could say the same thing about Ronaldo and Messi. But I think those two guys played for better. And like if you look at Ronaldo in 16-17, yes, he was great, but that's an all-time great team. Real Madrid 16-17 is one of the best teams of all time. Barca 10-11 is one of the best teams of all time. Madrid in 21-22 are a good team, but nobody says they're one of the best teams of all time. And Karim Benzema, basically, not single-handedly, but he was the driving force behind that UCL win. And to me, when I look at every knockout run he had, it was just, it was all-time stuff to me. It was all-time stuff. It was like watching Riquelme in the Copa Libertadores back in 07. If you haven't watched Juan Roman Riquelme, go back and watch his Copa Libertadores run in 07. The guy was insane. And it reminded me of Benzema in 21-22. Where it was just like, anytime his team needed him, this guy came through. So again, for me, all respect to Messi and Ronaldo, the GOATs of the UCL, the best individual UCL campaign for me is from Karim Benzema in 21-22. Next take. So Alex Ferguson is a bit overrated. And before everybody comments, bro, you're rage baiting, you're doing this, I'm not, I promise you. I think Sir Alex Ferguson is the best manager in Premier League history. He's not the best manager to manage in the Premier League, but Premier League legacy, nobody has a better legacy than this guy. But Sir Alex Ferguson dominated English football, especially in the 90s when English football wasn't that strong. And if you look at his European record, it's very weak. And yes, he won 2 UCLs and he won a treble. And people might think I'm reaching here, but if you go back and look at those 2 UCL wins, in 99, obviously in Barcelona at the Camp Nou, they needed 2 last-minute winners to win that game. Bayern Munich was this close to winning that game, and if it wasn't for Solskjaer basically standing in the right place at the right time, they lose that game. And then you look at 08, if Terry doesn't slip in Moscow, United don't win that game. They just don't win that game. And the 2 times he came up against Pep, the other 2 UCL finals that he made in 09 in Rome and 2011 in Wembley, he got thoroughly outcoached by Pep. And granted, those Barca teams were better, but they weren't much better than United. It wasn't like some mismatch. United were actually the favorites back in 09. Keep that in mind. The betting favorites for the 09 UCL final were United. And Sir Alex Ferguson got thoroughly outcoached by Pep Guardiola. So for me, and if you look at his record, there was a year in 05-06, I think they got grouped in the UCL. It's just not good enough sometimes, man. And for me, again, like I said, I think Sir Alex Ferguson ruled English football for a long time. His record, his track record, and his trophy cabinet cannot be disputed by anybody. But I think that when people say he's by far and away the best manager of all time, I'm like, bro, relax. Not even fucking close. Again, to me, he's the best Premier League manager ever. Not the best manager to manage in the Premier League. It's a difference there. You know what I mean? So, again, I don't want to disrespect Fergie or get Man United fans triggered because I know this guy's like their fucking idol. He's like their everything. I rate Ferguson very highly, but I think when you look at it, if you take a deeper look at his track record, and I can make a more in-depth video on this if you guys want, there's a lot of seasons where Man United in Europe underachieved, and again, his 2 UCL wins, again, they're not Mickey Mouse. United fans, don't get mad at me. I'm not trying to say that they weren't deserved. 100%, like, those teams were great. And that 08 team, honestly, could have won a treble. That 08 team could have won a treble because they barely lost in the FA Cup. But again, for me, I look at Terry slipping, I look at Solskjaer pulling a miracle. If it wasn't for those 2 things, we're looking at this guy never winning a UCL and getting out-coached in basically every final that he coached in. So, again, that's just my opinion. If you guys disagree, please let me know in the comment section down below. Next take. Gerard Pique is a top 3 center back of the 21st century. Gerard Pique, I've never seen a guy get more of a bad rap because, he takes stupid selfies sometimes, and he had the Shakira moment, and Shakira made a song about him cheating on her. He has all these things, okay? And people hate on Pique a lot. But when you look at on the pitch, you can't name me 3 better center backs this generation than this guy. And I'm including Vincent Kompany, and I'm including Diego Godin, and I'm including Matt Hummels, and I'm including Jerome Boateng, and I'm including whoever you want to throw in there, okay? Pick your favorite center back of this century. The guys in this conversation for me, the top 3 center backs of this century, and also Thiago Silva, the top 3 center backs to me of this century, Sergio Ramos, Gerard Pique, Virgil van Dijk. Not in that order, but kind of in that order. I would actually put maybe Van Dijk first, Ramos second, and Pique third. But again, you can order that however you want. I think Gerard Pique, if you go look at those Spain teams that won the World Cup and won the Euros, he was an integral part to all those teams. What he did at Barcelona, I think he's a 5-time FIFA Pro 11 player. So 5 years, he was voted one of the best center backs, one of the 2 best center backs in world football. Most of the time alongside his national team teammate in Sergio Ramos. If you go back and look at Pique from 09 up until like 2014, I mean, this guy possessed every skill set you want in a center back. His playing out from the back, it's like Pau Cubarsí basically. It's like Pau Cubarsí. He would play those long balls, man, and it was unstoppable, bro. His defending, again, it was great, but his decision-making at times could be poor. But for the most part, this guy was a great defender, made so many last-ditch tackles, and the most underrated part about Pique to me is, again, because he kind of looks like a goof, is his intelligence. He was such a smart player, such an intelligent player, could read the game like no other center back could. And for me, Gerard Pique needs more respect. When people talk about the best center backs of this generation, nobody ever brings him up, despite the fact that he's a treble winner, a 3-time UCL winner, a World Cup winner. And like I said, even if you don't want to look at trophy cabinet, look at his track record, look at his games that he played, bro. This guy was unstoppable. You're not a starter for Barcelona for the time that he was if you're not one of the best in the world at your position. That's just the fact of the matter. It's the fact of the matter. You don't start for a club of Barcelona stature if you're not as good as he was. So for me, Gerard Pique needs his respect. Top 3 center back of this generation, of this century, sorry. No debate about it in my opinion. Next take. The Battle at the Bridge is the greatest Premier League game ever. This game, if you're not familiar, took place on May 2nd, 2016. And it was between Chelsea, of course, and Tottenham. A huge rivalry. And this game, if you haven't watched it, go back and watch it. What are the components for an all-time game? Well, the stakes have to be high. The players on the pitch have to be somewhat all-time players. And the game has to be good. This game had all of that. The stakes, if Tottenham won this game, they were still in the title race against Leicester City. And if they lost this game, Leicester City won the Premier League for the first time in their history and the biggest underdog story in football history. Okay? The players on the pitch. Go back and look at the players on the pitch on that day. Diego Costa, Cesc Fabregas, Eden Hazard for Chelsea, John Mikel. You had John Terry, you had Ivanovic, you had Oscar, you had Willian. Courtois was on the team, but he didn't start that game. It was actually Begovic. But anyway, Chelsea had a great team. Okay? And Tottenham, Moussa Dembele, Harry Kane, a young Harry Kane, Heung-min Son. Dele Alli didn't start this game because I think he was suspended. But anyway, you had Christian Eriksen, a young Christian Eriksen. You had Vertonghen. You had Alderweireld. You had, obviously, Danny Rose. You had a young Kyle Walker. That Spurs team, low-key, was stacked. And the coaches, you had Pochettino and obviously Heinkes, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, you had Heinkes for, not Heinkes, sorry, Gus Hiddink for Chelsea. And Gus Hiddink, people don't know this, he's a treble winner. He's a UCL winner. He won the European Cup with PSV back in 87-88 and is one of the few teams and coached one of the few teams that has won a treble. And this game, bro, it started off 2-0 for Tottenham. Tottenham, like, they had never won at the Bridge up until this point. They had never won at Stamford Bridge in the league up until this point. And they were up 2-0. Heung-min Son scored, and also I'm pretty sure Harry Kane scored a goal. Okay, they were up 2-0. And in the second half, Chelsea come out and put 2 goals past them. And the goal that Eden Hazard scored in this game, the equalizer, the 2-2, it's one of the best goals I've ever seen. It's one of the best goals I've ever seen. Again, there's other games in contention for this. You have the game between, where the late great Czech Teota, rest in peace, scored against Arsenal, where it ended 4-4, obviously, at St. James's Park. That's an all-time game, Arsenal-Newcastle. You have the Liverpool-City game that ended 4-3. That basically, if that game goes differently, if John Stones doesn't clear that ball off the line, we're looking at Liverpool maybe winning that league title. There's other games that you can pick, of course. But to me, when I look at stakes and also the shithousery, man, so much shithousery in this game. When people talk about prime Barclays, this was prime Barclays Premier League. This was prime Barclays Premier League. If you haven't watched this game, the highlights are on YouTube. Please go back and watch it. To me, the fact that this game made Leicester City win the league, it makes it all the more special. And again, it was a great game all around. So for me, the Battle at the Bridge is the greatest Premier League game that's ever been played. Next take. 11-12 Real Madrid is the best team to not win the UCL. I've said this before, but I believe it to my core. This team, 100 points in La Liga. They were dominant. Their squad, I mean, look at this team, bro. Look at this team. This team is crazy. They were the best counter-attacking team that I've seen. You had prime Jose, you had prime Ronaldo, Ozil, Benzema, Higuain, Di Maria on that counter-attack were unstoppable. That defense of Pepe and that fucking scumbag, the scumbag Pepe and Sergio Ramos was unstoppable. Xavi Alonso, this team was insane. They obviously lost in the semifinals to Bayern Munich on penalties. And, if you go back and look at that game, you could argue Real Madrid deserved to win that game. And for me, when I look at this Madrid team, I'm happy they didn't win it, obviously. I'm really happy they didn't win that game. But this team is the best team to never win the UCL. You have other teams in contention for that. You have Juventus in 14-15. You have Juventus in 16-17. You have Barca in 15-16, which to me is second, but a close second. You have, what else? I can pick other teams also. But to me, in recent history, at least, the best teams that I've seen to not win the... Also, Chelsea 07-08. That was a really, really good team that didn't manage to win the UCL. But for me, this is the best team to never win the UCL. Madrid 11-12. This team was fucking unstoppable, bro. Unstoppable. This is the team that I fear the most as a Barca fan. No other Madrid team have I feared more than this one. So for me, 11-12 Madrid, best team to not win the UCL. Next take. Zidane is not the GOAT French player. People, I feel like Zidane, again, all-time great player, but people just kind of say, yo, yeah, he's the best French player of all time. To me, he's not. And I'm not even saying Henry's better than him. I think Platini is better. I think Platini, when you look at him, Platini is a 3-time Ballon d'Or winner. If you value individual accolades, he has more Ballon d'Ors than Zidane. Platini never won a World Cup, but Platini won a Euro. And if you go back and look at that Euro that he won back in, I think, 84, it's one of the best tournaments by a player ever. If you go back and look at that Euro that Platini won. Also, Platini won a European Cup, and if you look at his European Cup back in 84-85 that he won, he had 7 goals and 3 assists in, I think, 10 games or 12 games. Almost a goal or an assist in every game that he played. He was unstoppable. That was obviously for Juventus. They beat Liverpool in that final, actually, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, man, this guy, to me, I think Platini is the best French player ever. And again, everybody loves Zidane. He came back from retirement and won, almost won France the World Cup. He scored the header in the World Cup final. That's great. I think Platini was a better player and a more consistent player. Zidane wasn't that consistent throughout his career. I know everybody wants to say that we young football fans don't understand, we can't understand the game. I've watched a lot of Zidane games. I've gone back when it was COVID, I went back and I found a bunch of old Italian games on YouTube, and I watched a lot of Zidane's games when he played for Juve. He wasn't that consistently great player that everybody makes it out to be. And Henry is also in that conversation. I mean, Henry was a guy who, again, he always kind of played second fiddle to Zidane in those France teams. But you can make an argument Henry's you can make an argument Henry's the best French player ever. Again, I wouldn't make the argument. I think Zidane is better, but I would say it's Platini first, then Zidane, and then Henry. But again, it's a conversation. It's not like consensus. Like when people ask who's the best Portuguese player ever, you could say Eusebio, but nobody's gonna fucking take you seriously. It's obviously Ronaldo. When people ask who's the best Argentinian player ever, you could say Maradona. No, it's Messi. But for this one, everybody says, oh, it's Zidane. I don't think it's that clear cut. I think Platini definitely has a case, and I would say if you look at their career, he had a better career than Zidane, in my personal opinion at least. Our next take. Jose Mourinho has the best manager peak ever, but Guardiola is better all time. This is pretty self-explanatory. I believe peak, Mourinho has a better peak. But all time, I believe Pep is a better all-time manager. I think Mourinho, from 2003 up until 2010 or 2011, when he won that treble with Inter, obviously in 2010, but also it kind of carried over to when he was at Madrid. I don't think you could argue there's a better peak from a manager than what he did. The way that he won and the dominance that he had. Won a European Cup with Porto, goes to Chelsea and wins back-to-back league titles in the middle of the era where Arsene Wenger and Sir Alex Ferguson were dominating English football. This guy pulls up to a new league, the Premier League out of all leagues, and takes Chelsea to win their first Premier League in history. And then wins it again. And then goes to Inter, who had been not a great team, obviously, in Europe over the past, 50 years. Inter hadn't won a UCL in centuries, bro, it seemed like. And this guy comes in and wins a treble with a squad that, if you look at it, it's a great team. I mean, obviously that team was amazing. Pandev, Lucio, Zanetti, Eto'o, obviously Schneider, Milito. We know how good that team was. Julio Cesar. That Inter team was fucking insane. But the teams that he beat on his way there, and the final that they played against Bayern Munich and Louis van Gaal, I've never seen a manager he just took football by storm. He just had this personality about him, and the way that he played, man. People think that he was some pragmatic, like super defensive manager. If you go back and look at those Chelsea teams, and look at those Inter teams, and look at that Porto team that Jose Mourinho won with, they played some beautiful football. But for me, Guardiola is better all the time. I believe Pep's consistency and his longevity is second to none. And also Pep coached the two greatest teams of all time, in my opinion. Barca 08-09, Barca 10-11. And also, he's been dominating English football now for 10 years. But again, Pep did it with different teams. He did it with different styles, which I'm not taking away from him. But I believe peak for peak, when you look at the peak of a manager, I think Mourinho had a better peak than Pep. But all time, if I had to rank them, I think Pep's longevity and his consistency puts him at number one. And last take, I'm pretty sure, Raheem Sterling is incredibly underrated and appreciated. The way people talk about Raheem Sterling, you would think this guy's some bum. He's the highest scoring English winger, in Premier League history. He scored over 100 goals in the Prem. He had 5 seasons where he scored over 20 goals for Man City. He was a pivotal part to one of the most dominant teams English football has ever seen, a dynasty in Man City. This guy was a starter for them. And granted, he had some shitty seasons, but that team, I think it was back in his 18-19 season. I mean, and even for England, bro, people shit on him too much. I don't know why people, you know what, I know why people shit on Raheem Sterling so much. It's the same reason why they shit on Paul Pogba. I'm not going to say why, but if you know, you know. And call me a woke liberal, I don't give a fuck. I believe what I believe, and I think it's true. I believe that there's a reason why people hate on Raheem Sterling more than any other player. But again, I'll keep that opinion to myself because I know there's a lot of fucking people here that get triggered by that shit. But anyway, Raheem Sterling, man, whatever you want to say about him, you cannot deny this guy's one of the best players the Premier League has ever seen. And he was a pivotal part to those City teams. They don't, look, am I saying they don't win those league titles without him? Honestly, I don't know. And there's a reason why Pep Guardiola, who's, like I just said previously, the best manager of all time, there's a reason why it took him so, he kept him on his team for so long. He kept him in his squad for so long. Because Raheem Sterling was that good. So put some respect on Raheem Sterling's name because of this guy. If you watched him play, you know how good he was. Yes, he could have sweated at the ball. He could have sweated the ball to Harry Kane in that World Cup semifinal in Russia in 2018 against Croatia. He could have done that, sure. But he didn't. And you know what? That doesn't take away from his career. An incredibly good player who, again, his end product was shit, but that's not all there is. You know, there's more than end product. His off-the-ball movement was amazing. His dribbling was great. Raheem Sterling was an all-time player, in my opinion. And I believe he gets just so underrated and appreciated. He needs to be talked about more, at least to me. And is that it? Yeah, that is it. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you. Let me know your reaction or your opinion on my hot takes down below. I'd love to hear it. And yeah, man, I love every single one of you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace out.